With Valentine's Day having just passed, the day left me with a lot of time to think. Primarily because I had nothing else to do that evening, and I began to wonder, holidays are a pretty big part of just about every culture on Earth. But what about Nirn? Do the people of the Elder Scrolls universe have their own dates that they celebrate for traditional or religious purposes? Well, after doing some research, I was indeed surprised to find that they actually do. In fact, there's a wealth of holidays, apparently observed by the citizens of Tamriel we meet throughout our journeys, that are celebrated in really unique and interesting ways. Unfortunately, not in any of the more recent Elder Scrolls games, that being Skyrim, Oblivion, and Morrowind, do we ever actually get to see many of these occasions acknowledged. However, earlier entries in the franchise, namely Daggerfall and Arena, did include a bit more recognition for those oh-so-special times. In fact, Daggerfall's companion book, which came with physical copies of the game, had an entire subsection dedicated to listing calendar dates important to the people of Tamriel. Furthermore, some in-game books we can find across the universe do include notes and references to several dates and celebrations. So, while we might not get to see them, probably because no developer would want to create thousands of additional AI scripts that would only be used once or twice per playthrough, from a lore perspective, holidays are very much an active part of life for the people of the Elder Scrolls. Because of that, I thought why not spend the day taking a look at some of the coolest ones that stood out the most. Without further ado, today we're going to work our way down the 12-month Tamriel calendar, starting at the beginning, as we explore 11 of the most fascinating holidays in the Elder Scrolls universe. Starting off, the first special event to look at is the New Life Festival. As told in the book, From Old Life to New, and from what we can learn in the Elder Scrolls Online, the New Life Festival occurs on the 1st of Morningstar, the first day of a new year. One could probably already find some parallels here. The day is celebrated across Tamriel with joyous parties and feasts for the public, as all hope to begin the next calendar on the right foot. In the imperial capital of Cyrodiil, the Emperor is said to give a traditional speech, called the New Life Address, where he attempts to fill his people with optimism for the coming days. Different regions also have their own unique ways of celebrating. Aside from the traditional food and drink, the noble Breton families of High Rock put on daring performances and shows in their castles, while some Nords have taken to skinny dipping in freezing waters to start their new year off. But all across the continent, when the sun finally goes to sleep, the taverns come awake at dusk, as nearly all serve free meat and ale on this special day, leading to nearly every establishment hosting huge crowds, where the richest of kings and jarls drink alongside the poorest of serfs and beggars for this single evening. The next date we're going to dissect is the 13th of Sun's Dawn. This marks the Feast of the Dead. The Feast of the Dead is a celebration that exclusively takes place in Windhelm, Skyrim's oldest city. We learn a little bit about it through the Pocket Guide to the Empire. According to the text, on this day the people of Windhelm feast to honor Ysgramor and the original 500 companions who conquered Skyrim and settled it for the Nords. As its name implies, feasting and drinking are mandated on such a special occasion. As the day winds down though, the people of Windhelm gather outside to hear the names of every single one of Ysgramor's 500 read aloud in the town square. Every single year, each of those original pioneers is honored with a mention on this oh-so-special night. Unfortunately, these commemorations cannot be witnessed in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. The lore says they happen, but if you stop by the ancient city on the 13th of Sun's Dawn, nothing changes. Perhaps the people are just a little preoccupied fighting a current war to remember one that took place in the past. Heart's Day. Our third holiday is directly inspired by our own Valentine's Day. The 16th of Sun's Dawn, or Elder Scrolls February, just 3 days after Windhelm's feast, is quite a special day for Tamriel's young couples. We actually get to learn quite a bit about Heart's Day in the first Elder Scrolls game, Arena, during a quest that takes place amidst the celebration, where we must slay a promiscuous monk for Sanguine. On top of that, Daggerfall's game guide offers additional information. The evening is celebrated by bards, who fill the airs of Tamriel with songs of a legendary couple, named Polydor and Elosia. We're unsure why these two people are being sang about, or what the song's lyrics even are, but it's suggested that some action between the two is what led to Heart's Day being celebrated as a holiday. Perhaps there was an ancient Romeo and Juliet-like arc there. Thankfully, while we may not know why, we do know how this day is celebrated. Inns customarily offer free rooms to young couples, and everyone who can is expected to perform the Debellin arts, if you catch my meaning. Rather fittingly, Heart's Day is also the summoning day for Sanguine, Daedric god of debauchery, who takes a special interest in the occasion. So the next time the 16th of Heart's Dawn passes on your playthrough, maybe it's a good idea to put on that Amulet of Mara. The 7th of First Seed marks First Dawn. The day in spring, the farmers of the continent finish sowing their seeds that will later on be harvested in autumn. It's said to be a day where the people of Nirn attempt to settle grievances and disputes formed over the last year, and instead look towards the future together. Parties and feasts of all types are held in the backdrop, and one really neat quirk is that priests and mages use this time as an opportunity to distribute free potions and cures to those who need them, but might not otherwise be able to pay, ensuring any injuries or sicknesses sustained when planting can finally be treated. Unsurprisingly, we'll see a similar celebration in a few months, when the seeds planted on this occasion are actually harvested. But until then, we'll have to move on. This one's probably my favorite. For 4th spot, when the sun rises on the 28th of Rain's Hand, Jester's Day begins. We learn a lot about this holiday in the Elder Scrolls Online. Observed mostly in cities, Jester's Day is in many ways Tamriel's take on April Fool's Day. Denizens of all walks of life throughout the day play pranks and tricks on one another. Everything from a simple jump scare here and there to elaborate multi-stage cons seem to be on the table. This behavior is encouraged by troops of jesters, who parade through the streets of several towns, making a complete mockery of the populace and generally just reveling in the absurdity. And the action is apparently just so much fun that even the highest of nobles and lords can't resist the temptation of getting in on it, taking a break from that sternness their positions generally demand to inject a, shall we say, new type of tension into the royal palaces. The upper classes are also specifically targeted by those groups of jesters, who mock them relentlessly for everyone's amusement. And on this day only, such behavior is tolerated. The origins of how these festivities came to be is unclear, but many suspect that Sheogorath, Daedric Prince of Madness, to be behind it in some way. Others assert that the holiday was actually started by ancient elves thousands of years ago, who with little understanding of man's humor, sought to create a day where they could try to emulate it. No matter how this occasion came to be, Jester's Day certainly seems to be one of the most interesting times to be alive on Nirn. The 20th of Second Seed brings with it the Fire Festival. No, not that one. In the Elder Scrolls' lore, the Fire Festival is an extravaganza held in the Breton Kingdom of Northmoor. It's said to be among the most well-attended exhibitions in the entire region, though we're unsure how it's actually celebrated. The lore suggests the Fire Festival has changed a bit over time. We do know that it started off as a military parade, where the strength of regional soldiers and mages were shown off in lavish displays, and locals and nobles from all over would come to see. I just hope that in the Elder Scrolls' Fire Festival, however they choose to celebrate it, everyone has proper sleeping and eating arrangements. Otherwise, they might get a Netflix documentary written about them. Wouldn't want that happening. Oh, this is a date we can all appreciate. On the 10th of Sun's Height, basically July, is the Merchants' Festival. Recognized across all lands, this fantasy parody of Black Friday apparently centers around a tradition, in which, for this day only, merchants all collectively agree to slash their prices by 50%, leading to packed marketplaces and town squares in every major city all day long until every stall has sold out. Curiously, merchants affiliated with the Mages Guild refuse to participate in this practice, and maintain their high prices. While certainly a cause for public resentment, the mages do have their own holiday in which they become a bit more generous, that we'll get into in a moment. Now, I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say that it is truly a shame we don't see this holiday observed in Skyrim during the events of the Elder Scrolls V. Or even in Cyrodiil and Oblivion for that matter. I suppose an invasion of Tamriel by Daedra, and later dragons, has left her merchant class a tad more frugal. It also just doesn't seem to be economically viable for a business to just literally sell everything at half off, without somehow passing those costs down the line. Oh well, the economy of the Elder Scrolls is definitely a weird one. I mean, the value of a septim hasn't moved at all in the past, 2,000 years? No matter, still regretful this day isn't observed anymore. 8th, Harvest's End is that Thanksgiving-like celebration I mentioned earlier. I suppose it makes sense to occur shortly after medieval Black Friday. It takes place on the 27th of Last Seed, and is perhaps among Tamriel's favorite days ever. As the name implies, Harvest's End marks the end of the year for most of the farmers, who, after ages of sowing and tending their crops, have finally harvested and will settle down for a brief rest over wintertime. With the harvests now over, most celebrate with massive feasts of fresh fruit and vegetables. And there's so much to go around that even the lowliest of farmhands can absolutely stuff themselves. Taverns also relish on this day, once again offering free ale and mead to all who enter. The combination of this food and drink apparently often leads to hilarious sights in the evening, as people who ate and drank too much can be found sickly stumbling their way back home in the late hours. Some won't even make it all the way to their beds, but at least they had a good time. The 3rd of Hearthfire is said to be the most divisive holiday in the Elder Scrolls, for it is when Tales and Tallows is observed. The Tamrielic Halloween without the trick-or-treating, Tales and Tallows is a day of superstition. Many elders and spiritual individuals refuse to speak at all during this time, fearing that opening their mouths will allow for evil deities to sneak their way into their bodies. The younger generations view this occasion with less fear and more enthusiasm, often celebrating within their own homes with food, drink, and song. But no one, young or old, dare step outside after dark. It's said that come nightfall, the dead walk the streets. The Mages Guild, however, relishes in this environment, honoring Tales and Tallows as a celebration of necromancy, and for this day only, slashing prices on all their affiliate shops by 50%. So those excited to dabble in the magical arts should view this occasion with anticipation. Just try and make sure you're home by sundown. Not 3 weeks later, we jump to our next important afternoon, Children's Day. The 19th of Hearthfire brings with it a celebration of youth in the Breton kingdoms of High Rock. We yet again find ourselves uncertain on the specifics. It could be that such a holiday is like Mother's Day or Father's Day that we celebrate in our world, just directed at kids. So parents and adults could spend the afternoon giving their children gifts and preparing them extravagant meals. Or it could be celebrated with more traditional parades and festivals just tailored towards the youth. We're unsure. However, we do know why Children's Day is recognized as a holiday across the Breton kingdoms. Hundreds of years before the events of Daggerfall, Children's Day wasn't marked by festivities, but instead, mourning. It was originally created to honor dozens of children who were stolen from their homes by vampires in High Rock on one fateful night. Though, since then, the day has evolved to become more of a time for jubilee rather than despair. Let's just hope another attack doesn't happen again. Now we jump ahead to the final month in the Tamrielic calendar, Evening Star. We've got 2 holidays left, the first of which occurs on the 25th day of this oh-so-chilly month. Its name, Saturalia. It calls for a full day of extreme festivities, parades across cities, endless food, drink, the typical holiday stuff. The cold weather, though, forces the crowds to stay especially bundled up as they dance the day away, before everyone heads home or to a tavern to swap stories and eat a bit more by a fire. So far, this is all pretty generic, but Saturalia is also a time for gift giving, as participants are expected to have prepared material surprises for at least a few of their close friends and loved ones. Taking place on the 25th of the 12th month in the year, and emulating its generous traditions, Saturalia is a direct parody by Bethesda of Christmas in the real world. But parallels don't stop there, because the Roman holiday many argue modern Christmas is based on was called Saturnalia, so even the naming scheme used had some outside influence. Not too long ago, players of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition may have noticed that Bethesda introduced a Saturalia content pack to the Creation Club. According to the Elder Scrolls, Saturalia began in High Rock, but quickly expanded across the continent as all wanted in on the fun and action. So, if I were you, I'd start asking my companions what they wanted for the holiday season. You wouldn't want to be that guy now, would you? And finally, we are now at the last holiday to be featured in this video. Indeed, it occurs on the final day of the year, the 31st of Evening Star. Today is the day of the Old Life Festival. You'll note that the year begins with the New Life Festival. Unlike its counterpart, which begins in a single day, the Old Life Festival isn't as, well, festive. It's a time for reflection, for people to visit temples and think about their experiences over the last year, and consider how they're going to change things going into the next one. According to Daggerfall's game guide, there are rumors that many priests take this day to do something a bit odd. Supposedly, when night falls, some of those connected to the Divines attempt to resurrect loved ones they lost over the last year. We don't know if they generally succeed or what happens to those who are resurrected if they go back to normal, but these rumors should be taken with a grain of salt. They are just that, though it certainly wouldn't be the weirdest thing in the Elder Scrolls. Aside from potential necromantic rituals we just mentioned, unlike most holidays, the Old Life Festival has a relatively quiet night as everyone just goes home. Of course though, as we discussed at the beginning of this video, the morning will bring new celebrations, as the Festival of New Life begins. And with that, we have come full circle. 12 of the most intriguing holidays celebrated in the Elder Scrolls universe. There are many more than just a single dozen, so perhaps another video is warranted on this topic. But I found it incredibly neat that there are specific dates of importance and religious significance scattered throughout the Elder Scrolls' lore that just aren't communicated to us through normal gameplay. I would love to see Bethesda try and incorporate some of these dates and celebrations into the Elder Scrolls 6. I know in Fallout 4, there were a couple of holidays you could see be recognized in Diamond City, but it wasn't anything big, just some pumpkins on Halloween or some Christmas lights on Christmas. Even then really, some minor aesthetic changes would still be a welcome improvement. Anyway, on that note we are going to wrap up. Thanks for stopping by everyone. Which of the holidays we explored today did you find to be the coolest or just absolutely most interesting? And what types of celebrations would you like to have seen expressed in the game's lore? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.